Welcome to Ascension with B, where we talk about spiritual awakening, ascension, and everything in between. I'm your host, Stashia Jeanette, aka V, and we have a special guest who's about to take us on a journey with their unique experiences and gifts. Craig, please introduce us and all that you do and how we got here.
Hi, Jeanette, and hi to your audience members. My name is Craig Yee, and I am a spiritual life coach that helps people heal from their karma, heal from the emotional wounds, empower themselves with tools and practices to live a more happy, lighter, brighter, fulfilled life. A
Right.
free life.
A free life, yes. Okay, now we got super sucked into the initial intro part before we were recording, and we were on a roll about some things, and I would love it if you could pick up from where we left off at.
Well, I think I'll start off with what we were just talking about, a collective awakening happening, a
Correct.
movement for us
Yes.
to come home to our hearts. Our hearts are where our home is, and that's where we're going. And unbeknownst to me and maybe some other people, it's not an outwards journey.
No.
It's an inwards journey.
Yeah.
The first thing we got to do, unfortunately, sometimes is get our heads out of the way. As
Yeah.
they would say, the longest distance anyone will have ever traveled in their lifetimes is from the head to the heart.
To the heart.
It's only about a foot or so,
Right.
maybe 14 or 15 inches, but man, does it ever seem long.
So long.
So long. And the quote that we shared in the introduction, and I'll introduce to yourself again and your audience members, is the mind is meant to serve the inclinations of the heart.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, I think what I said earlier was for whatever reason, where we're at now, we're definitely meant to be leading from the heart and soul and having the mind take back seat, where previously up to this point, it's been very much everybody leading from let's logic this out, let's see what makes logical sense, let's do things from like okay, I can put the facts and the physicality to this, and that's how I'm going to make sense of this. But right now everything has shifted to it being a very much energetic and just an energy based world. And it's very difficult to operate, period, from this point forward, if you're still leading from kind of that old paradigm of just let your mind be the thing that moves you. It's energetic dissonance between the mind and the energy and where we're at right now.
Well, it's essentially, if anyone's a Star Trek fan, a Vulcan mind meld, but
Yes,
in the way of
yes,
combining the head and the heart. It's not one
yes,
or the other, and anybody who knows this, the mind is more of the divine masculine, the heart
yes,
is more of the divine feminine.
feminine.
And
Yeah,
as men and women and everyone in between comes to their Kundalini awakening, there's going
yeah,
to be that Vulcan heart mind meld. And
yes,
it's funny too, because a few months ago it started to pop up for me that I wonder, how this heart mind thing works. There's a lot of research, a lot of books that are now tuning towards there is not a separate mind body connection. They're actually one
right,
and the same. Well, it's the same thing with the heart. Neuroscience has now proven, they have
hmm
now proven through evidence that the heart is its own brain,
correct. Yes,
right? It has over 40,000 neurons. It actually sends more signals to the brain than the brain sends to the heart. So if we look at it from a scientific standpoint, melded with a spiritual standpoint, because science and spirituality is pretty much one and the same thing, the mind, God source gifted us with this power of our mind. But I
right,
truly believe that the mind is there to execute the inclinations of the heart.
yes,
It is to help us create, but where that creation comes from starts and leads from the heart and our intuition first.
right,
But somehow over time, the mind has kind of taken over. The divine masculine has taken over,
right,
right?
right,
And I for sure, because I have a bachelor's of science and a master's of science, I for sure have been in that overthinking, over analysis, Some people might have heard of this
Analysis
term. Yes,
paralysis.
exactly. Paralysis by analysis. Exactly. You took the words out right out of my mouth. And I'm just sitting there churning my wheels, spinning
Mhm.
around in my own vortex and merry-go-round,
Yeah,
cascading avalanches of thoughts, and I'm not doing anything.
exactly.
I'm literally just
Yeah,
sitting there doing nothing.
it's here.
I'm thinking, right? And honestly, it has been tiring.
Yeah,
That much thinking, oh my goodness, it's like I ran 10 marathons back to back to back.
literally
But in my mind, right? In my mind.
in your in your mind, literally, and you're sitting here like, why am I so exhausted? What's happening? Why am I not getting anything done? Why has nothing
Well,
changed?
I've said that to my kids who, I'm encouraging them to do sports, right?
Yes,
Taekwondo, running, whatever
yes,
sports they are passionate about. And oh,
right.
excuse me, sorry that there was a little beep there. And what I said to them is if you just sit around thinking all day, all night, that's actually more tiring than
It is.
doing actually a sport. And if you actually
Yeah,
look at it from a different standpoint, and this is not to judge anyone, but I myself have been there before. I
right.
haven't worked out. I haven't gone for a walk. I
Yes,
haven't done anything. All I've
right.
done is sit there thinking, why am I so
Yes,
tired? It's because our
yes,
thoughts, our energy,
yes,
that saying, feed the brain, right? You got to
yeah,
feed the brain. Well, when we have thoughts, it takes up energy. And if we have that many thoughts, I think there's an average of 60 to 80,000 thoughts a human being has on a given day. That's also a lot of
yeah.
thoughts.
So much, right? I'm like, it's so much. In factual proof, it's so much.
And there's this little hamster, on the wheel, spinning, spinning,
Mm,
spinning, 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 right? And you wonder when is that
yeah,
hamster going to just keel over and just go to sleep?
gotta be exhausted. What is he? How much coffee did he have? What's he on? Because he's been going faster than the Energizer Bunny nonstop.
A lot of caffeine from Red Bull and 5 hour energy drinks.
5 hour energy.
But I liken it to our minds are like an engine, right?
Yeah,
We need to take a break sometimes because if you
yeah,
if you over rev that engine and you're redlining it and you're going 100 miles an hour all the time, eventually that engine's going to break. Something's going to
yeah,
break down. So,
yeah.
that's all the mindfulness practice, the meditation, being in nature, all that stuff. But it's
Right,
also a deeper thing than just that because a person can practice mindfulness all day, every day.
right.
They can meditate and learn how to do breath work all day, every day. They can have other practices that I implement, salt baths for grounding, journaling,
Yeah,
praying, all that kind of stuff. But the key question is how do you minimize and detach from those thoughts?
that.
Where do
Yeah,
those thoughts come from?
right,
Are they even my thoughts to begin with?
right.
Or were they put in me by
Yeah,
somebody who was influential in my life, be it a parent, an auntie and uncle, a cousin, a
right,
friend, anyone, right? Are these actually my thoughts? And when
right.
I looked at that in my healing work and my spiritual journey, I realized that over 90% of my thoughts weren't even my own.
Weren't yours. And also on that, like a lot of times, a lot of us who are very like clairsentient or like
Mhm.
beyond overly empathetic, we're speaking from personal experience. I was frequently like picking up like collective thoughts, like collective energy or collective ailments. Do you know what I'm saying? Like this energetic sponge. And for a long time, I had no idea that it wasn't that it these weren't even mine. Like these weren't even my thoughts. These weren't even my feelings. These weren't even my ailments, whatever the case may be. But that point there of like this isn't even mine is it's a thing. And I think a lot of us who are energetically sensitive, that's something that we have to frequently check in with. Is this even me? Like, does this belong to me or not? You
Well,
know?
and that's that's the power, the blessing and the curse of being an empath, right? Of
Right.
being a highly sensitive person. Like I am. My kids are. One of my kids is a super empath, and so
Right.
she picks up everything. Right?
Everything.
As soon as we step outside of our home, it's just
Yeah.
bombards her.
Right.
And sometimes they have big feelings that need to be addressed and things like that. So
Exactly.
how do we protect ourselves from that kind of stuff? Well, you can't exactly protect yourselves. It's
Right.
because if you close yourself off, to,
It's a
those sort
whole
of things.
nother issue.
Now you're closing yourself off to love, compassion, help,
Yes.
guidance,
Yes.
understanding,
Yes.
joy, happiness, all that
Yes.
kind of stuff. So really what it comes down to, and it's a book that I want to write, is it's boundaries, not barriers,
Mm, that
right?
do that, Craig. You
And
need to
saying,
write that for
you know,
real.
yeah, no, this is not mine. It's like
Yeah.
anybody who's watched The Matrix, which is a deeply spiritual series.
It
It
is.
is, isn't it? Right? The Wachowski brothers at that time, now the Wachowski sisters, they were
Yes.
revolutionary. And
Yeah.
near the end, when everyone thought that Neo died, and then somehow he gets resurrected, obviously, replicating, the story of Jesus, rising from the dead,
Right.
and the Smiths, they're shooting the bullets at him. Before he was trying to dodge those bullets, I don't want to get hit by these emotional poisons and arrows.
Yes.
All of a sudden he finds his own inner power, his own level of neutrality, and says, just no. And they
Yeah.
fall to the ground,
Yeah.
right? It's not even allowing it to pass into your sphere of energy. It's just like, no,
No, I'm good. Right. No
I'm
thanks.
good, because that,
I'm
and
good.
unfortunately, there's it's so easy to get sucked into someone's emotional drama and
It
vortex,
is. Right.
right?
Right.
Especially when you're an empath, right? So
Mm.
you're generally a giver,
Yes.
especially when people are unfortunately energy vampires
Takers.
and takers
Correct.
that want to suck your energy because they don't know how to tap into source to,
Right. That. Yes.
elevate themselves, right?
Yes. And they're like, you're like a big, like radiating battery. You're just like giant light bulb, and in the darkness, you're the sole source of light. And they're like, let me take, and it's like, no, you have to figure it out for yourself.
Well, and that's where the boundaries come in, right? That's,
Right.
I've talked to so many people, generally older, right, in their 40s,
Yes.
50s, who are now really looking at their friendships and their
Yeah.
relationships and saying, do I literally had a talk with somebody last week about it. Does this person actually serve my highest good?
My, yep.
Do they benefit me or value, like, or how do I feel, right?
Is
That's
this
how I started.
reciprocal?
Right. Is it reciprocal, right? And most of the people are like, these people in my life are just taking. I don't feel
Yeah.
elevated. I don't feel
Yeah.
joyful. I don't feel happy. We talk about negative stuff in the news. We talk about
Drama.
problems, drama, complaining, whining, all that kind of stuff. So how is that elevating me to a higher
Beneficial.
level, right? What really is
Right.
happening is that your frequency, your energy is being dropped down.
Mm-hmm.
There's certain places that my youngest daughter won't go to, even
Yeah.
though I love going to these certain places in Vancouver, right? Like Granville Island. She's like, Daddy,
I'm
I
good.
just feel the energy is just too low. Can we not go there
Yeah.
today? Right? I'm like, okay, yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
Yeah.
I've had to stay away from certain people and programs because I feel, and anyone who maybe questions that and says, oh, these guys are crazy.
Oh,
Think of a time, right? I asked your audience, think of a time when you were like on high, not high, but just like you were loving life, you were radiating joy, you were like on the top of the world, cloud nine, pink cloud, whatever you want to call it. Then you
yeah.
go walk into a room of depressed people, angry people,
Right.
upset people, frustrated, right? Resentful. Now tune in and try to remember how you started to feel.
Right.
Were you still feeling really radiant and joyful? Or after a few minutes, you're like, oh my God, like this sucks.
Yeah.
And then
We
reverse it.
gotta go.
You're depressed, you're not feeling that great, you're upset for whatever reason. Again, no judgment. And then you walk into a room full of like joyful, amazing, awesome people, right? Your mood just
Right.
can't help but to be uplifted. And
Right.
then all of a sudden, your energy shifts. You literally
Mhm.
have a energetic shift in your body where your frequency raises.
Exactly.
So if anyone is potentially questioning that, they're not a sponge as an empath, or that they can't feel certain things, that other people's energy can't affect you, right?
Right.
You know, think about those kind of circumstances in your life where you felt these things and really dive deep into it, because some people may realize, oh my gosh, I am an
I
empath.
don't know.
Oh my
Right.
gosh,
Like
I
this is
am
the thing.
picking up other people's psychic debris. The things that have happened to me, and I don't know if it's too out there to say these things, but let's just call it
Yeah.
healing in my early part of the journey, I've been
Yeah.
told, and actually just recently, yesterday, I've been told that most of the stuff that's in me, that's on me, as you said, is not mine.
It's not yours. Exactly.
It's other people's stuff,
Exactly.
right? And for whatever reason, call it people pleasing, rescuing, sacrificing, martyring,
Yes.
savioring. I want to help. So the way I
Yeah.
help as an empath is, well, let me take on your stuff.
Yeah. Right. Let me just exactly.
No,
Yeah. It's like Craig, the same. I feel like we've been on the same journey. Like same.
absolutely, right? And even deeper than that, I thought, hey, you know what? I'm getting to this somewhat monk-like level. I'm very honest, so I don't, you know, mince any words when it comes to where I'm at. And I
Right.
thought, well, I'm going to take on also my ancestors' karma.
Yep.
I'll break their cycle. I'm powerful enough. I've done the work. And then one of my healing practitioners said, "Why are you doing that?
I
That's their
yeah.
stuff. That's
Yeah.
their property. You don't have to own anything that they
Exactly.
have done or not done here on this earth, right?
Right.
Now, we are all going through that from a 3D
Right.
perspective, right? Those
Right.
toxic relationships that suck our energy. The folks like myself, I had an addiction to people pleasing because I want to get acceptance and validation and approval from others because I didn't know how to give that to myself, right?
Right.
I didn't even know what boundaries were until 4 years ago.
Yeah. Same.
I had no
But
boundary.
again, right. But that's part of the process. Like we we didn't have it, and now you learn like, oh, this is a thing, and then you're like, this is the importance of boundaries and saying no. I say there's a lot of love in the word no, and but it's part of it. We had to go through that.
Well, absolutely. And as they say, some people might have heard this, saying no to others, of course, being kind and gentle, sometimes
Right.
assertive and firm, saying no to
Right.
others is saying yes to yourself.
That.
I grew up in an Asian family, so you are expected, you are trained and conditioned and programmed to serve others. And if you do anything for yourself, you are
It's selfish.
selfish, you're
It's selfish.
self-centered, you're
Yep.
self-serving, you
Yep.
always have to sacrifice. But the problem is, and it's not just Asian families, the problem is that
No, it's yeah.
whatever you do, it will never be good enough.
That, that, that. And I can now obviously, like, I'm Black, so I can attest. Like, it's obviously not just an Asian thing. Like I said, we're very similar path, very similar journey. And I have heard those exact same things. Not only that, but when I fully embraced this path and who I was, and I stopped doing the aforementioned things, like the amount of like, oh, you think you're better than us. So now
Yeah.
you're just selfish. You're selfish and you don't want to, so you can't help
Who
us
do
and
you
you
think
can't
you
do
are?
who you think you are. Well, you used to do this, that, and the third, and you used to X, Y, and Z, and you then this and that. And so we're just disowning you, like, and it fine. I'll play the villain role. That's fine. But
Well, and
like,
yeah, they have to make you out to the villain, but here's what it comes down to. You're just
right.
simply not giving them what they want,
Right.
right? You're
You
not,
know?
it's literally, um, there's a famous quote from Lao Tzu, an ascended master, that says, "Act without expectation." Three simple words,
Right.
not that easy to implement in real life, but literally
Right.
act without expectation. And when as an empath, somebody on the other side is so used to taking your energy, you're so used to giving them your energy. They're used to you pleasing them, serving them, rescuing them, doing their responsibilities for them. When you actually start to say no to them and yes
Yeah.
to yourself, when
Yeah.
you start to take care of yourself, you're essentially cutting off that cord, that attachment. And they're going,
Exactly.
what the F?
What?
What the
Yeah.
hell? How come you're not giving me what I want?
That.
How come you're not talking and being the way I want you to be?
That. Yes.
My
Yes.
kids actually brought up something that was quite funny, that kind of triggered me a little bit, I'll be honest, where, somebody said to them they had a problem with the way I dressed, right? They had a problem with the way I look. This is a family member, right? They
Ah,
had a problem
of course it
with my
was.
long hair and you can't really see it, but it's purple, right?
Yeah.
And they thought, they called me a hippie, right? And disparaged me in front of my own kids. right? This is someone who is in an elder position, who is supposed to be wise and good and not say,
Right.
whatever. But
Right.
it just goes to show that for the most part,
Right.
those people have certain images,
Mm-hmm.
ideas, beliefs, views, and perceptions of how they want you to be
You
for them. And if
correct.
you don't meet their litmus test, if you don't kick the ball through their goalposts that they set in place for you, the distance and the width, then you're bad. You're
That.
evil. You're the villain. You're the enemy. Here's the
Mm-hmm.
problem though. Those goalposts keep on shifting.
Exactly that. Literally.
They go to the right, they go
Literally.
to the left, they go further back. Those
Yes.
expectations and standards they have of you, they keep on going up,
Constant. Yes.
right? So it's almost like they're manufacturing without really knowing it. The whole not good enough thing.
Correct.
The whole not you're not worthy, right?
Correct.
Okay, great. You kicked a 70-yard field goal. Now kick a 75-yard field goal.
Right.
Great, you achieved, third place in that competition. How come you didn't get to number one?
Why didn't you? Exactly.
Right? So until we do some healing and find out where that stuff is coming from, why do we have to live in someone else's image of us?
Perception.
Why do we have to believe what they have told us? There's this
Mm-hmm.
beautiful article of a woman, I think in Ontario, who had her third child. She was about 300 pounds. And one day she's like, I can't do this. Like, I need to be there for my kids. And so she decided, just like that, to change her diet and now runs like ultra marathons, 100-kilometer marathons.
Okay.
And now she's like, I think they said in the article that she's 140 pounds,
Yeah.
right? She said that where that idea came from about her body image was from a gym teacher back in elementary school who denigrated her, disparaged her in front of other classmates.
Yeah.
And for over 2 decades, she believed what that gym teacher told her.
Yeah. She held on to it.
She held on to it, and it wasn't her belief.
Yeah.
It wasn't her thought. So I say to your audience members who are healing and things like that, it's not so much proving people wrong, right? Because a chip on your shoulder can be quite a heavy burden. It's quite a heavy
Right.
cross to bear. It's proving yourself right.
Right.
Proving
Yeah.
yourself right in terms of your beliefs, but you can't get there until you actually look at where your beliefs come from. You can't get there if you don't look at your thoughts and go, wait a minute, I didn't believe that. I ask anybody, when you were a baby, did you believe that you weren't worthy?
Right.
When you were a toddler, did you believe that you weren't deserving or good enough?
Right.
That stuff was put in you.
Exactly.
Not your fault. But
Yeah.
when you become aware of it, it's your responsibility, right? You got to take ownership of your healing and responsibility for your healing to address that, to literally, unfortunately, I guess, undo or
Yeah.
rewire your brain,
Rewire.
right? And that's the whole thing of neuroplasticity and all that kind of stuff. Rewiring ourselves from these set these neural pathways that are like, no, I am not good enough. I don't believe in myself. No, I don't have confidence. I will never meet someone so and so's expectations. To no, I am good enough.
Exactly.
I do have the confidence. I just got to try and work hard, right?
Yeah.
What those people have told me ain't true,
Doesn't matter. Exactly.
right? It doesn't matter, but it's not true,
True.
right? And
Yeah.
really what it comes down to is what I've realized is the other person's their lacks, their scarcity, their fears, right? Whatever you want to call them, gets transferred into you, right? It's not you, it's them, right? It's not about you, but it's about you.
But at the same time, it is. Yeah. But at the same time, it is though. And that's something that you mentioned that about the woman from the article, the magazine, and it being her gym teacher. Another thing that I speak on and I'm making courses on and things of this nature is about your inner child healing, and where a lot of these things that you've just talked about, they happen from like your formative years, like a lot of this self-imposed, or not even self-imposed, outer imposed things, conditions, beliefs, perceptions came from somebody, like an influential person in your younger years, like your formative years. And I recently spoke on a situation with a health situation where for a long time, it took me a long time to get to the point of having the courage to stand up to doctors whenever they were treating me badly or gaslighting me or things of this nature when I knew something wasn't right. Because for a long time, I literally, I had a few doctors say to me in pediatrics, like while I was young, that like, because you're not worth trying for.
Wow.
Yeah. And that was something that literally, right.
Wow. The depths that people can go to with the words, the hurtful words that they use. Obviously, they're not coming from their heart.
Right.
Obviously they have biases and prejudice.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because if you were a good person, an empathetic,
Right.
kind person, you wouldn't ever say that.
Say that.
Anyone.
And then again, two people just like that woman in the article thing. Why say that to wait, hold on a second.
Yeah, something went blanky there.
Something went blanky. Let me see what's going on here.
I've been having, for anybody who's had some technological issues of late, dropped phone calls, flashy stuff, technological issues with Zoom or video conferencing, whatever, that's when your energy's shifting to a higher level.
Tomorrow is the full moon, so
Is
like
that,
I don't know.
why is that coming out?
I don't know. I don't know what's happening.
As a collective, and we talked about it earlier with feeling everything. Like I feel the shifts, right? In the world, in people. Sometimes I wonder, I go outside, I'm like, what is going on with this traffic? Why are people so antsy and in a rush? It's almost like some level of frenetic craziness going on out there. And then I tune in and realize, oh yeah, there's shifting happening here.
This is what's happening. It's the shifts, right?
It's the shifts. Well, and it's good to kind of go deeper than that. I think there's a fear, especially from my perspective and my experiences, there's a fear of going deeper, right? Oh, you're muted there, Stashia.
It's a fear of being vulnerable in general. Okay.
Well, in talking with one person along their healing journey, the reason why they didn't look deeper is because they were afraid of what they're going to find out.
Yeah.
They were afraid, they admitted to me in a conversation that they were afraid of maybe what these other people are saying about me, what they believe about me is true.
Could be true.
And I'm telling everybody right now, it's not.
It's not.
Especially if it's negative.
Yeah.
If it's not encouraging, compassionate, understanding, if it's not rooted in love, it's more on the basis of fear, nervousness, anxiety, worry, all the low energy type feelings, it's not true. Because the only truth out there is love. The famous singer, India Ari, one of her quotes is, love is the most powerful energy in the universe. If it ain't love, it's fear.
It's fear.
Right?
And that's one of the things that I think a lot of people are still, I call it kind of like trying to break through the firmament of things in your ascension process. It's that thick layer of fear, like breaking through that barrier of fear is one of the biggest things I think that prevents a lot of people from getting to their next level. But it is having to dive into yourself and confront all the things that you've kind of avoided looking at for the longest because of what you said, being afraid that it might be, true, but it's not. It's a thing.
Well, I think it's a big thing is a fear of the unknown.
Yeah.
Right? It's the fear of the unknown, right? Because we're so, in the early part of my, spiritual awakening journey, I was starting to question, why do we have to label things? I'm a man, I'm a woman, I'm not a man, I'm not a woman. Why do I have to define myself by my age, my name, my status in culture, or my job position? where
Right.
do all these labels come from? Because as soon as you label and categorize something, classify something, you basically take away the essence of what it actually is,
Right.
right? Because a tree is just more than a tree. A tree represents life,
Yeah.
resilience, struggle through adversity to grow strong roots, right? Of
Yeah.
death and
Yeah.
rebirth as it loses its leaves and comes back in the springtime. So
Yeah.
when we are, excuse me, faced with the unknown, there's a bit of a retreat that happens within
Yeah.
us. We shrink,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
In our power to look at the inner child, to do the
Yeah.
mirror work, which is some of the toughest work I've ever done in my life,
It's rough.
is
It's so
rough,
rough.
right? Inner
It's
child
so
work, I don't
rough.
want to compare, but I'm like mirror work, I was probably got to be like up there in terms of like the work I've had to do, right?
Craig, you have to talk about that because I think that in itself is a Pandora's box that again, like I said, my expertise topics are shadow work, inner child healing, but the mirror work, I'd love to hear it from your perspective of how you dealt with it because we're similar.
Well, I'll start off with the not so great, right?
Right.
The bad that was actually disguised for the good is, I'm a recovering alcoholic and addict. And in my
Yes.
darkest day, when I had a very, very bad fall, I busted up my face. I finally looked at myself in a mirror, like really looked at myself in the mirror,
Really.
and I did not recognize the person that was staring back at me. I was
Yeah.
literally just a ghost, a shell of a
Yeah.
man. And that was my inkling. It wasn't until I actually got into treatment where I start to get healthy again and start doing the work, et cetera, and the nurses at the station said, "Oh, the color's coming back into your face. You're looking healthier." And I said, oh,
Yeah.
"Geez, I thought it looked good." And they showed
Yeah.
me a picture of my intake photo, and I looked pale,
Rough.
gray. I looked rough, right? So that's how crazy my mind was,
Yeah.
actually believing that I looked really good on the first day entering into treatment. And then a week later,
Yeah.
I look at that photo and go, oh my God, I look like
Right.
basically walking death. And
Yeah.
so that mirror work, as uncomfortable as it may be, right? Because as
It's
they say,
necessary.
the eyes are the window to the soul, right?
Yeah.
Is really looking at yourself and learning how to accept yourself. And what I say to people about mirror work is don't go start staring at yourself in a mirror. Like, don't just jump right in and just look at yourself in the
Yeah.
mirror.
Yeah, because that's what I did, and it was bad.
It was, because what happens, of course, is that you're now looking at your own soul and all your memories and all the stuff that you're recalling, and you
Yes.
can easily go into shame, regret, guilt, all that kind of stuff, and then you start hating yourself again.
Yeah.
What I say to people is before the mirror work, kind of like prep yourself, right?
Yeah.
Write down some affirmations like I love myself, I am a
Yeah.
good person, I forgive
Yeah.
myself, and don't do that in front of a mirror. Just write it down and just say it
Just
over
write
and
it.
over again,
Yeah.
right? And then do some healing work to find out why. A lot of people don't ask the question why, but why do
Why?
I feel like I'm not a good person, or that I'm not
Yeah.
worthy, or that I'm not good enough, or that I deserve love, acceptance, approval, validation, all those good things.
Yeah.
And then when you feel strong enough and you build up that internal strength, courage, and resilience,
Yeah.
start to say it a little bit, looking at a mirror for like a very short time, 30 seconds,
Yeah.
15
Yeah.
seconds. It's like meditation, right? Like I could not meditate for more than a minute when I first started, when I was about 13
Exactly.
years old. About after a year, I got up to over an hour. But when I first started, I had so much trouble meditating. 5 seconds, 10 seconds was like excruciatingly painful.
Max. Yeah, like
So
max.
yeah, it's the same thing with mirror work, right? Like 5 seconds, 10 seconds, stop. And then
Right.
as you slowly get more into the practice, the habit, the comfort, and doing the healing work, right? You got to pair it. You got to do it in conjunction with the healing work
Right.
and realize that you are good enough. I'm telling everybody, you are good enough. You do deserve good things and happiness in your life. You are worthy. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. That is a false belief that has been imprinted and implanted and programmed into you.
Yeah.
Then what will happen as we discover that we no longer have to people please, we set boundaries and maintain them, we don't have to rescue, we don't have to save, we can give our own selves ourselves the validation, acceptance, and approval, and the love all we want, that's when
Yes.
the mirror work becomes much easier,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
To say, truly looking at yourself in the mirror, I love me.
I love myself. Yeah.
I
I love
love
you.
myself. And then you can
Yeah.
give yourself a nice little
Yeah.
self hug and
Yeah.
all that good stuff. But mirror work doesn't work if you don't do healing work with it.
With it. Yeah. In conjunction.
Same thing with shadow work, right? I also specialize in shadow work. I've been doing shadow work for 4 years.
Yeah.
Same thing with inner child work is it doesn't work if you don't go deeper, right? I say to some of
Yeah.
my clients and my friends that I help in services, ask why until you
God.
can't ask why anymore.
Anymore. Yes.
And
Yes.
at that level, that deep level is your answer and your solution,
Yeah. Exactly.
right? You will discover then in that darkness a treasure chest, right? In
Yeah.
all that pain,
Yeah.
right?
It's
You will
there.
discover these amazing gifts and treasure of realizations of knowing, right? You'll develop the other clairs like claircognizance, right? You will just
Yes.
know, right,
Yeah.
that
You
you
just
are a
know.
good person, you are light and love, you are
Yeah.
peace, and F everybody else. They don't know.
Exactly that.
You almost have to get to that point where you got
You
to
do.
say whatever you say, right? It's like that saying that people say but don't really believe. What other people think of me is none of my business,
Exactly. Right. Great, but don't really believe. Like, but literally though, yes.
right? Because everyone, like we say it, right? And the wise mind, the logical mind can say it, but do we truly believe it?
Right, because but that getting to that point of where we truly believe it, like, you have to have gone through the aforementioned to get to that. And that's why nobody believes it, is because nobody has done the aforementioned. Not that many people have done the aforementioned. Everyone just kind of like tries to stay surface and
Yeah.
not take the plunge.
Yeah, like it's like the proverbial layers of the onion, right? You got to keep on peeling
That
back. You can say I forgive so and so, but do
right.
you really truly forgive them? Like I'm supposed to create a video and a module about forgiveness and what are the sort of the 8 or 9 points how you
Mhm.
know that you've come to a true level of forgiveness, which comes
Yeah.
in layers. One of
Yeah.
which is you can actually thank them
Hmm.
for the learnings and lessons that you don't need anymore. You can actually
Like
find
Ho'oponopono.
gratitude for what they've taught you and what they've
Right.
taught you how to be and taught you how not to be. Another one is forgiving yourself,
Yeah.
which, man, in my experience, is a hell of a lot harder than
It's right. It is. It's like,
forgiving somebody else. But
yeah.
these are the deep things that we're talking about. And now the sun
Mhm.
is like, kind of like more shining. These are
Exactly.
the
Like,
deep things that we're talking about that if we don't ask why,
hmm
and if we don't get out our shovel and start digging, we won't be able to get that freedom and peace we truly want,
right.
right? Like it's like dandelions, right? The weed, right? If we just
Yeah.
pull out the flower, the dandelion flower, or even the stem, maybe even some of the leaves, and expect that
Right.
dandelion to be gone,
It's
right?
like not. It's
Next
back
spring,
next. It's
maybe
back the
even
next day.
maybe in yeah, the next day I was gonna say before spring, it's gonna pop up
Right.
again, and you go, why is that still there? I thought I got rid of it, right?
Yeah. Like, what is this? Yeah.
Well, literally, if you dig, and I had to do this with my mother in her garden, she made me do all the heavy work. I literally kept on digging and digging, and I had to go about a foot and a half deep. And when I pulled out that dandelion root ball, it was
Yeah.
massive. I was
Yes.
shocked, right?
Yeah.
So I have a meditation on my YouTube channel called "Clearing the Garden of Your Minds," and that's clearing out the root of our problems. Well, the root of our problems is very, very deep.
Deep. Yeah.
And we got to do a lot of asking, investigation, exploring, digging, asking why to get
Yeah.
down to the root, which is, as you said, in terms of something that happened in our childhood, in our
Childhood.
youth, in our
Yeah.
formative years, to be able
Yeah.
to unearth that,
Unpack it and
right?
deal with it.
And then the job is not done, right? Like,
No.
oh yeah, you know
Yeah.
what? Oh yeah, no, I've got the root out. It's like, okay, well now the question is, what are you going to plant in that
In that place,
space,
because you can't just leave the void. Like, you have to
right?
put something in there. Plant a new seed.
Plant a new seed, compassion, love, understanding, whatever it is, whatever floats your
Yeah.
boat. But then it's not,
Right.
it doesn't stop there. It's
You gotta water it.
what kind of soil am I going to use? What am I going to nourish it with? Give it that
Yeah.
sunlight,
Yeah.
give it that love, give it the water, give it whatever it needs to be
Yeah.
able to flourish and grow. So
The miracle grow.
the miracle grow, right? But from a spiritual, standpoint,
Yeah.
people say to me, my orchids and my plants and flowers in my home, like how, like your stuff is like amazing, it's beautiful. I'm like, it ain't just miracle grow, it ain't just
Yeah.
the fertilizer and the soil I
Love.
use. It's the love
It's
that I
the
give, and I
love.
challenge anybody who doesn't believe that. And
No,
there's
for
some people
real.
in my family who don't believe that love doesn't actually have an effect on plants. Is go look up the
Do you
research.
do you talk to your plants and like give them a hug?
Absolutely.
That's what I
I've nicknamed
do.
my
Yeah.
plant. My anthurium is Annie. My bromeliad is Bromy. Right. I say hi to my
Same.
plants and things.
Yeah.
I challenge people to do some research. Right. Just find out
Hmm.
that. And first part of the research is looking up the effect of what you say and how you feel about your plants. Right. There's experiments out there where they have the same plants. One, you give it love.
Yeah.
The second, you're neutral, like meh. And the third, you
Eh.
say, I hate you.
Right.
And they've actually shown that the plant that you have given anger and resentment and hate will wither and die.
Yeah.
Right. Or that famous, I can't remember his name, but it was like the 60s or 70s or 80s, where a Japanese researcher tested out words and feelings on water and
Hmm.
how it formed crystals. Right. The water that you said you gave anger to and hate, they were all kind of spiky, nasty looking, crystal flakes. And then the water that you gave love to, when it formed crystals, right, as it got frozen, just looked so amazingly beautiful, right?
Right.
Smooth edges and things like that. So those experiments with water, plants, they work with humans too. We talked about it right in the
Exactly.
beginning about how we can feel other people's energy, the love and the hate and that kind of stuff. Because what people don't realize, and maybe they do, is we're all made up of the same stuff.
Literally.
Atoms, electrons,
Yes.
protons,
Yes.
neutrons. We just our makeup is just a little bit different.
Different.
Right? We
Right.
all are, we have a certain density, rocks have a certain density, car parts and phones have a different density, but we're still
Right.
made up of the exact same stuff.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
And so if we're all basically the same, why can't we feel and shift energies and have that connection, those threads between me and you? And like
Yeah.
anybody who's ever had a beautiful deep chat with a friend or a family member, tune into your
Yeah.
body. And if you start to get like little tingles in your crown, you
Yeah.
know chills in your body, that's the love. That's
Right.
the resonance.
Right.
Right, that's the uplifting thing of like, oh my gosh, this person gets me. Yes, that's right.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then
Oh
tune
my
into your
God.
body when you're disconnected with that person. Your energy vibe is not on the same kind of like wavelength.
Right.
Right, your frequency
Right.
is just off, and you're like, man,
Energetic
I'm
dissonance.
not just like, I'm not jiving with you.
Yeah.
I'm not
Yeah.
resonating, with you.
And then if you say that, but man, like, but if you say that to them, they're like, "What? Like, what do
Well,
you mean?
you can't,
You can't say that
if you and I were in the same city and we were having a conversation over a coffee, we can talk like this all day, all along.
all day."
But I have to shift what I say and
Yeah.
watch the words I use. One time I used the words, well, let me tune in and get back to you.
And they're like,
Response from that person was question mark, question mark. Like, what the hell are you talking about? You know what I mean?
"What do you mean?"
Right? But if we look at, I don't suggest people obsess over the news, but if we look at the
No.
nomenclature that's
Right.
out there, we look at the cultural shifts, we look at words in magazine articles, newspapers, the words that are said in YouTube videos and news, whatever it is, the words like connection, the words like resonance are starting to become more popular. Right? We haven't yet gone to that level of angel numbers and
Right.
divine messages, right, yet. Like
Right.
one of my course modules in my 6-week course, I think the second module is about divine signs and messages. Last night I was watching a show, and it's cold. It's wintertime basically in Vancouver, and I was seeing
Yeah.
something like flutter around my lights, and I looked. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's a little baby ladybug.
Yeah.
That was so cool, little visitor. If I told you the number of times I've seen ladybugs in the last
Same.
month,
Same.
in the wintertime now, my kids have seen it. They're outside. They're
Yeah.
on my car. They've landed on my hand. All that kind of stuff.
Same.
Just like, oh my gosh, oh, thank you. That's a
Yeah. Did you
beautiful.
look it up? Did you look it up?
I
Like
know what
the
ladybug. Yeah, I've looked it up. I've
yes.
seen it so many times. I already kind of
Now
have
you know.
memorized.
Exactly.
Joy, luck, fortune,
Love, luck. Yes.
love. All that kind of stuff. But I implore people to not ignore some of these
The
signs,
signs.
and messages, right?
Yeah.
There's that level of kind of like divine flow. And I ask people, there's one particular person I'm helping with, and I said, have you ever wondered how it's possible to have met somebody randomly on the street that you haven't connected with in a long, long time, right? How many
Yeah.
things could have happened, needed to have happened, dozens, hundreds, thousands, that you came together at the exact same time
Right.
on the street. Like, you can't even manufacture that.
Right.
Traffic jams, accidents, traffic lights, forgetting your keys in your home, forgetting your wallet, right? Being
Yeah.
distracted with a phone call. All these things are, in a way, divinely orchestrated
Right.
to have met that person. And then the question is, why did I meet that person again?
That. Yeah.
I saw an old friend who, this person had a gambling addiction. They moved with me to Calgary. They couldn't pay their rent. I was ready to kick them out, but my intuition was like, no, don't kick them out in the wintertime. Like, take care of them, all that kind of stuff. I had a lot of anger and resentment. I felt betrayed by this person, right? I trusted this
Yeah.
person, and they blew all their money in the casino. I
Yeah.
hadn't talked to that person or seen them in like 20 years, right? And we were pretty close friends.
Yeah.
And one time I was walking in a beautiful park called Queen Elizabeth Park, and me and my other friend decided, well, let's do a meditation in the park. So I got out my beautiful crystal singing bowl. We sat there, meditated. But as we were walking up the hill, I see this guy. I'm like, what? I thought you were in the Cayman Islands. I thought you were doing your thing over there. When did you get back into town? And why are you here at like 8:30 in the morning on a
Right.
Saturday?
Like,
Like,
what
how
are you
random is
doing?
that? Now, a
Right.
lot
What
of
are
people
you
might dismiss
doing?
that and go, well, just luck.
I hate that. I hate that more than anything. Like,
Coinky dink.
no, that F it
You know,
isn't.
no, there actually is why we met. I needed to do some healing to let go
Yeah.
of my anger and my resentment for all the things
Right.
that guy did, and the hurts and harms that I perceived that he imparted on me. Right.
Right.
So, folks, don't ignore this stuff. Like, the numbers, the hummingbirds, the birds, the ladybugs, the random meeting of an old friend that maybe you had a falling out with, like, they all mean something.
Right.
And they're all here to help us, going right back to the beginning, heal our karma. And once we heal that karma and get that stuff out of the way, once we get the root balls out and make space for something new to come in, that's when we're
Right.
going to experience much more freedom, much more happiness, much more contentment, right?
Yeah.
And peace in life. And who wouldn't want more peace in their lives?
I mean, you'd be surprised, but exactly that.
Well, speaking of addictions, I remember my counselor saying in treatment, Craig, you're not just, you just don't like chaos. You are chaos. And
Right.
I told him to F himself. Like, I literally told my counselor, F you, man.
I've had people say that to me before because like I don't coddle any of my clients because you're not healing that way. Like
Yeah,
there's not, you know what I'm saying? Like you don't heal. There's no transformation in that,
yeah,
But I've had people do that exact same thing and be like, you know what? You can just go F yourself, like because you shouldn't tell people that. Like, look, man, I'm not here to tell you what you want to hear. This is the truth.
yeah. Not what you want to hear, but what you need to,
It's
right?
what you need to
But here's
hear.
the thing, he was right. I was literally
Yeah.
walking chaos. Why? Because I was addicted to chaos. Why?
Right.
Because I thought chaos was my power. I thought
Right.
chaos was the way things were done. I was
Right.
taught chaos. I was actually born into chaos,
Same. Did
right?
do you know the thing about like the universal birth of like the universe being born from chaos and like from
Yes.
light and dark?
Yep. That's exactly it, right?
Yeah,
But in that chaos can come peace, right?
exactly.
That's the spiritual warfare that's going on
Hmm.
outside of us as the darkness appears to be rising and appears to almost overwhelm us and engulf us, but it's actually light is being shed on it. It's actually coming out of
Yeah.
the woodworks, right?
Yeah.
But it's also about the spiritual warfare inside of us, the war between the head and the heart.
Hmm.
Oh, I don't want to do this, even though we should be doing that. And that's the battle between these two things.
Yes, exactly
And
that.
the only way we're going to get peace from it is to release those things that are not serving us that well, that are not serving the highest good of not just ourselves, but the highest good of all.
Of all.
That's one of the biggest things. One of the biggest reasons for healing ourselves too. Like when we heal ourselves, we help heal the world.
It's a rippling effect.
Yeah, it's a
Exactly.
butterfly or rippling effect, the pebble into the
Yes.
proverbial ocean. And anybody who
Right.
doesn't believe me is, okay, well, I'll use a grocery store example. If I'm angry and I'm frustrated, I'm tired, I don't want to wait in line, I'm impatient, and I let my anger out to the cashier, right? That might affect, it not just affects other people in the lineup, my anger and my pain, right? My impatience, it may also affect that cashier. Now those people in the
Right.
lineup are upset, right? I
Right.
literally downloaded, gave them, transferred my upsetness to them. And they
Yes.
go, right? It's a reverse pay it forward kind of a thing. That movie with Haley Joel Osment.
Literally.
Well, it's a reverse pay it forward. I'm paying forward negativity. Then they go
Yeah.
home to their kids, their family, their friends, their workplace, and they transfer their upsetness. And so it's
Right.
like an infection, right? This negativity
It is
infection
though. It is.
where
Yes.
my behavior, because I'm not at peace, has now
Right.
infected a whole bunch of other people who then
Others.
go and it's exponential, right? It
Correct.
multiplies. Now
Right.
reverse that and
Exactly.
do the Haley Joel Osment thing and do the pay it forward thing and truly give like anonymously do three kind
Goodness.
acts and
Right.
then see how that ripples out,
Exactly.
right? But we got to do some healing to be able
Hmm.
to, like, we have to look at ourselves and go, what am I putting out in the world?
That's
Can
yeah.
anyone ask
What is
themselves
your
that question?
energetic? Yeah.
What's my energy like? Am I going to bring my best self, right?
Hmm.
That saying, right? Self-care or taking care of yourself is giving the
Yes.
world the best of you instead
The
of
best
what's
of
left
you.
of you, right? Am I giving out what's left of me? Tired, grumpy, hangry,
Right.
lonely,
Angry.
angry, resentful, or am I giving out light and love and peace, right? Because both are a choice. Both are a
Exactly.
choice, right? If I know that I'm not feeling that hot, my energy vibe might be a little bit low, I stay inside.
That's me, literally. And do you get slack from that from people? Like people are like, why are you not what? Why do you not want to come out? Like, why are you not? Because I'm not. I'm off. I'm not with it today. Like I'm trying to. I'm doing this for y'all. It's for
Yeah,
the betterment of.
yeah, yeah,
Literally,
yeah.
it
You
is
are.
for the betterment of everyone. If I just stay my ass inside today,
Well,
honestly,
here's the
because
thing. I'm probably older. I'm pushing 50. I'm 49.
okay,
And in the early part of my spiritual journey, and even before that, I started to let go of a lot of toxic, negative, non beneficial relationships in my life. I started to really
exactly,
question who really, truly had my back, who would show
exactly,
up at my funeral, who would show up if I was injured badly and was hospitalized, who would actually
right,
come to take a bullet from me, whatever it is, take care of my kids, whatever it
right.
is. And I realized not many.
Not many,
As a
exactly.
friend said to me, as I grow older, my circle of friends grows
Yes,
smaller but
yep,
stronger. So I don't
correct.
have people in my life actually that go, how come you're not coming out? How come you're
Right,
not socializing? Why are you being a hermit? Right?
right.
Because I am very now quite selective as to
Say,
who are my
right.
friends. If
Same.
I do have a friend that says, "Hey, you want to get together?" and I know that I'm not in that place to get together, I'm gonna
I'm good.
politely decline and say, "Hey, no thanks. I just need to just be in my own little cave,
Yeah.
just take care of myself, right? Take care of my energy, because I know that if I do go out, what I am going to
It's
put out there is not going to be good for
it's
anybody.
not it's not oh it's
It's not for. I want to make sure that my vibe is high, and
right.
not from the level of, sorry, spiritual folks, but there is such a thing called toxic positivity. You know,
Man,
good vibes
man,
only. Don't
love and
talk
light
about
only.
don't talk about the negative
I'm
stuff.
never angry. I never
Just ignore
experience
it. Yeah,
anything
yeah, yeah. Well,
negative.
that's just
Yeah.
oppressing, repressing, and
What?
suppressing yourself. Like, who do you think
Yeah.
you are, kind of a thing. You ain't no god sitting on some spiritual pedestal.
I'm glad that you said it, Craig, because I've experienced a lot of people in this journey. Like I've seen a lot of things where people are like, no, like I'm always happy. I'm always happy. I'm always happy, and I'm
Yeah.
always full of love
Bullshit.
and light.
Because you know why? All you got to do is actually truly look at their eyes, look into their soul. When someone says,
Right.
"Oh, I'm good, I'm fine," and I go,
Literally, I'm like,
"Are you really, truly, really?" "Oh, yeah, 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 yeah." I'm like, "Okay, well, your
mm,
eyes are telling me a different story. Your body
looking
language, right? The tone of your voice don't
right.
don't lend itself to the truth that you're doing. But hey, whatever floats your boat, whatever you want to tell yourself,
Whatever.
right?
You look a little scared.
Well, and you know what? Going back to your point of doing inner child work, right, which I've done too. I think a
Yes.
lot of the fear comes down to people are afraid of being honest with themselves. Like, you
That
gotta get rigorously honest
honest with
about what
yourself.
happened. And unfortunately, sorry folks, but unfortunately, sometimes it's going to dredge up old feelings,
Wounds.
right? You gotta, as I heard in treatment, sometimes you gotta rip open up the wound again because it didn't heal
Yes.
properly, so that it
Correct.
can heal properly.
Correct.
But what I can say is this: it's not as painful as the original wound.
That, yes. Yes.
It's painful.
Yes.
There's
Oh
no
no,
doubt about it,
oh no. I mean, it's still gonna suck. Yeah.
right? It's uncomfortable, but what would you rather have is a question I
Right.
ask my clients and other people. Would you rather
Right.
continue to suffer and not
Right.
change anything, not look deeper, not do that work?
Right.
Or would you rather just suffer for a shorter period of time, rip
Yes.
literally the proverbial band-aid off, and just get down to business,
Right.
right? Because what is your freedom worth? What is your happiness worth? What is living a lighter, brighter future worth? What are you worth, right?
Yeah.
Because if you're saying, right, and I'm sorry folks, but this is the truth. If you're saying
Yeah. Yeah.
it's not worth my time, my energy to heal, to
To
do inner
heal
child work, to do shadow work, to do mirror work, to do the work, then what you're
the
really
work.
saying
The work.
is, I'm not worth it.
I'm not worth it. Right. And that's
But
what.
the thing is, each of us are. We just have to
Yes.
discover that we are worth that level of investment and time, and stop getting, unfortunately, distracted by fear-based mongering in the news, scrolling through YouTube and Instagram and this, that, and the other thing. Like, we all have the same amount of time even though time doesn't truly exist, but we all have the same
Exist.
amount of time,
Right.
right? And it's
Yeah.
roughly about, take away 8 hours of sleep, take away roughly an 8-hour workday, some travel, other things, roughly about 112 to 120 hours of free time in a week. That's a
Right.
lot of time. Multiply that by
Right.
60 minutes. 120 times 60, what is that? I'm Asian, but I'm not good at math. 72,000 minutes,
Yeah.
right? So with that 120 hours, at 72,000 minutes, what are we doing with our time, right?
And you mean to tell me that you can't say, hey, I'm worth it enough to sit down with myself in solitude and be like, why am I the way that I am? Why do I do the things that I do? Why do I think the way that I think? Why am I acting the way that I'm acting? Like, that's not,
Because
you
it's
can't pencil
uncomfortable.
in some time?
Because it's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I did not feel like I belonged, and I certainly did not feel comfortable in my body, right?
Yeah.
It's
Same. Same.
it's like that I can't remember the French philosopher or poet saying, but we are not human beings having a spiritual experience. We're spiritual beings having a human
Spiritual beings having a
experience,
human experience.
right?
Yes.
And that's human experience of our feelings and looking at ourselves
Uncomfortable.
and being in solitude, that loneliness we feel is, I get it, is uncomfortable.
It's uncomfortable. Right.
But as you get used to doing that work and used to being in solitude, it becomes more comfortable, right? Get comfortable
Yes.
being uncomfortable. And in fact,
Yeah.
actually now I cherish my,
Exactly.
that
Alone
time for
time.
me is sacred.
Same,
My
man.
home
Same.
is my sanctuary. My sister Jeanette is about to visit, and she's like, "Oh, you should be renting out your condo because, Taylor Swift is coming into town in Vancouver and she's playing 3 nights." I'm like, "I would,"
No.
but
However.
subtly I said, "It's too much work to set up an ad, but I don't want any stranger with their
Yeah.
energy coming into my home, my house,
Yeah.
and disrupting the
My
sanctity,
energy.
the energy that's in it." And everybody who comes over to my home, without putting myself up there, goes, "Wow, your home just feels so calm and
Exactly.
peaceful, and it smells good," because I have incense,
Yes.
diffuser oils, and it's
Same.
and it's clean, and they just
Yes.
immediately, I can see, as soon as they walk in through the door, I see
It's
their body
like,
just go, "Ah."
yes, see, same. Craig, Craig, listen, I knew it. I told you, I was like, it's the
We're
same
resonating.
thing.
Yes,
Yes.
right. And
Yes.
so that's part of the chaos. I keep on telling my kids are famous for like throwing clothes on the floor and stuff, like, guys, cleanliness is next to godliness. And when you have a
Godliness.
clean
Pick this up.
home and a
Yeah.
peaceful home, generally you have a clean mind and a
Right.
peaceful mind. But again, we've got to be able to, what is it worth? Like, do we want to invest that time? Are
Yeah.
we ready? Are we open? Are we willing? Are we willing to be honest? Are we willing to try? But here's beyond that. People can say, "Yeah, I'm ready to get treatment for my alcoholism or addiction, or ready to go to a mental health therapist, whatever." But are you now not just willing to do the work, but will you just do the work?
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's a what I call a healing hump or a healing bump, that a roadblock that people like yourself and myself, with our clients, with who we're trying to help, we're the ones who,
Right.
who can help people navigate and help them get the roadblocks out of the way, not do the work for them.
Yeah, and that's also the thing is I think sometimes people think that like we're here to like just magically do everything for them, and I'm like, I can I'm doing you the same way that God's Oyster Universe did me. Like it gave me the ingredients to bake the cake or cook the
I
meal,
love
but
that.
like I still had to, like, okay, I've got all the ingredients here on the counter or on the island, but like I can just look at the ingredients all I want. It's just not going to be made for me.
Right.
I have to mix
On
everything and
the
I have to
oven,
do
set the temperature. Yeah,
correct.
right. What I say to people is, God's source, angels, guides, holy masters, ascended masters will help you, but you've got to
Correct.
meet them at least halfway.
Right. Yeah.
You can't just sit around not working and hoping that a Ferrari will drop in your lap. Like, you gotta work a
Right.
little bit for that Ferrari,
Right.
and set
Right.
reasonable goals, for yourself.
Right.
But if anyone expects that God or angels or anyone, a person on this planet, is going to take away your pain, no,
Right.
that's not going to happen, right?
Right.
How did I realize this? After being like 90 days sober, being in a 12-step program and continuing on, about 6 months into my sobriety, all of a sudden the obsession for drinking and drugs just disappeared.
Gone.
I don't know
Exactly.
when, I don't know how, I don't know what happened.
Right.
All I know is this: I had to do work, and when
Exactly.
I invested in my sobriety, when I invested in my
Right.
recovery and my healing, they did the rest,
Correct.
right?
Same.
So yes, the work is hard, but hard work, as they say, defines the character of a person. Some
Yeah.
people turn up their sleeves, some people turn up their noses, and
Yeah.
some people don't turn up at all,
Yeah.
right? That's a quote I found somewhere, right? And that's what we're here for, is to help people to roll up the sleeves, but we're not going to do it for you, right? That's the
Right.
problem with our society, is that we're such an instant gratification,
Instant gratification. Yeah.
right, type of society, where we all we have to do is go onto Amazon to get what we want, and it literally shows up the next day, right at our doorstep.
Right. Right.
That we are expecting some kind of panacea, some kind of magic pill or potion, you know,
Literally, yeah,
that's
just
gonna just make all this stuff disappear, right? So we've been trained
correct.
and conditioned by society, institutions, whatever you want to call organizations, to believe that all you got to do is take this one pill. All you got to do is take Ozempic, okay?
Yeah.
and
No,
and instantly
exactly.
you're gonna lose weight. Not, hey, maybe look at the way
No.
you're eating. If you're eating
Right.
nutritious foods, and of course
Go to
balance it
the
out,
gym.
exercising, or at least just going for a walk. Like
A
how about
walk.
do the things that are just naturally, like organic and all kind of stuff, right? Why do we have to take
Correct.
some kind of medicine, or
Shortcut.
because the shortcut is, I need to get there faster. I need my
Yeah.
instant gratification, right? Like
Right.
anybody who challenges this and says, well, looks down upon me as an alcoholic, which my family has. I'm like, well, you're
What?
addicted too. Can you live without
Right.
Netflix? Why are you
No.
spending 6 hours on your phone scrolling through Facebook? Try putting
Right.
down try putting down your phone
Turn off the
for a
news.
day or a week and see how you start to feel. You're gonna go
Yeah.
through the similar symptoms called
Withdraw.
pause, post-acute withdrawal syndrome, right? Same thing with
Yeah.
coffee. Start cutting out coffee, even though I love coffee. You're gonna actually have post-acute withdrawal syndromes.
Withdraw. Yeah.
So whether
I
you're
say that to
addicted to
people.
likes or hearts or thumbs
Yes.
ups or whatever,
Yes.
we're all addicted to something, right? But
Right.
now that we're aware of it, what are we going to do about it?
Right.
Why am I addicted? Like, I realized that my addiction to those substances and other things had nothing to do with the substance itself. It was
It
to
was about
help
the
me.
escape.
Sorry?
It was about the escape.
It was the escape, exactly. I was avoiding. It was my way of
Correct.
numbing out, because the feelings that I was feeling that were all coming to fruition in
Yeah.
that, another dark night of the soul. So I've got a course that I'm putting together that helps people transition from the dark night of the soul, onwards into shadow work and stuff, right at the beginning
Yes.
stages of the journey. That dark night of the soul had to happen for me to get to that rock bottom point to actually make a change.
Exactly.
Like, enough is enough, Craig. You got to get off your butt.
We gotta get out the
Because
merry-go-round.
get off the merry-go-round. Do you want to suffer even more, right?
Correct.
And so if we can embrace our suffering, if
Right.
we can welcome with open arms our emotional pains and wounds, if we can be comfortable with the discomfort of the unknown, and just have an
Right.
open mind, an honest mind of discovering, my
Yeah.
goodness, like the treasures. Well, like you found the
Yes.
treasures, and you're teaching and educating, and same thing with me, right? I'm guiding
Same.
people in,
Right.
these are the treasures you can find, but no one's
But
going to
you
go dive into the abyss for you.
for you. You
No one's
have
going to
to you gotta
swim,
put on your little helmet, your little scuba
and
gear,
you're
and you just
exactly,
gotta
and you got to go deep to find that treasure chest, right? Like,
yeah.
nothing was ever handed to me on a silver platter,
Ever.
ever. And
Yeah.
also in my spiritual awakening process, right?
Right.
And so, please don't expect anyone that I'm going to even give you an answer, right? I'm going to give you the tools, the
Right.
practices, the methods,
Right.
the guidance, so that you can learn to use them to find your own answer, which is not the same answer that I found,
Right. Yeah.
right?
It will be different. And I think that's also something that again needed to be said and noted is that I think people expect everything to go the exact same way. Oh, well, this person did it this way, and so this is how their X, Y, and Z happened. So that's how it's gonna be for me. And like, no, it's gonna be
Well,
different.
that's that programming of comparison and competitiveness.
That
Well, so and so did it this way. It's like keeping up with the Joneses. Oh, they got a brand new TV, so I'm going to get a bigger TV. And the Joneses go,
right,
well, geez, they just got a 55-inch TV. I need a 65-inch TV. And all of a sudden, now you have a
right,
1,000-inch TV. But as they say,
right.
right, it's maybe it's the same storm but different boats,
Correct.
right? We are all going towards inner wise, to home to our
Correct.
hearts, but the ways, the paths, the journeys to get there are a little bit different, right? We're going to
Different.
diverge. There's going to be twists and turns, hairpins, all that kind of
Right.
stuff. But the biggest thing here is not so much the outcome, right?
Correct.
Because that's another level of expectation, right? If you're
That
expecting
that that
that all of a
having
sudden
to
that people are gonna like treat you different, you're gonna be
correct.
sorely disappointed. You know what I mean? Right?
the mastering of just having no expectation to outcome at this point is literally where I'm at. I wake up every day and I'm just like, we'll just
And
see
it's
what
hard,
happens.
right?
It is.
Don't expect anyone that if you let them in, right, when you're driving, they're gonna give you a wave. Don't expect that when you hold open the
Don't
door for a person when it's stormy, windy,
that
and
they'll
rainy
say
out,
thank you.
they're gonna say thank you. Don't expect
Right.
them to be good or bad or anything. Just don't expect. Lao Tzu, act without
Right.
expectations. And that's
Right.
is again hard, a lot harder to implement and
Yeah,
practice. But
it
once you
is.
do get to those levels, and I'm finding deeper and deeper levels of that, man, the amount of peace that you have, right? To not expect, because again, here's another thing. It's not how much is your peace worth. It's also, is it really worth feeling upset if someone doesn't say thank
That
you?
like now in every day to me, if it takes too much energy
Yeah.
for me, do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Literally, like this is how I operate now. I meticulously calculate like how much energy is it going to take for me to react to that, and like it's just not worth. A lot of times, I find the answer is it's not worth it.
Right. But there's a difference, and I think you know this, of ignoring it, right?
Correct.
Because like if you get
Correct.
triggered, that's a warning sign, a
Like,
caution sign to do something,
you got to dig into
especially if
that.
it keeps on
Yeah.
repeating itself as a pattern or a trend,
Correct.
right?
Right.
Or is it, hey, I've set my boundary with that person, and you know what? They're just spouting off what they're going to spout off. They're just acting
Exactly.
how they
Exactly.
are, right? They're just being themselves. Now
That's them.
that's of course a whole level of acceptance, not
That
quite tolerance. Like you don't have to tolerate someone's
how
poor words or poor behavior, but you
right.
just accept them for who they are because are they going to ever change? No.
No, and that's just them. And but also the reverse side of that is like how I'm trying to operate now is treating people, literally treating people the way that I want to be treated, and like the
Yes.
acceptance level of that is how I just want to be accepted as I am. Like don't try to impose how you think that I need to be on me. I didn't ask. If I'm not asking for your opinion and input, don't try to project onto me how you think that I need to be, and I'm not going to do it to you. I'm just going to accept you as you are, just as I want to be accepted as I am,
But here's
right?
the
And
thing,
like
it's not going to stop those people in your life
no,
in terms
no,
of criticizing or judging you. You know, that person that said that
right,
stuff to my kids about the way I dress and the color of my hair and how long my hair was, that person's like
right,
80 years old.
right,
You know, they're a close
exactly.
family member. You know, like,
Yes,
you know, they're just going to spout off what they're going to spout off. You know, that
exactly
person is
that.
also just turns out to be a racist and
Yeah,
prejudiced, but that's how they were
yeah,
raised. And to try to
yeah.
change their mind to say, you know, love for all and we're all equal and we're all the same and we all have the same
It's a,
heart, and that it's gonna just go. Do you know what I mean?
correct,
So
correct.
folks, the way that you change, the reason why you change is not for them. The reason
It's
why
for
you
you.
change is for you. You know, when I
Correct.
was younger, I was called a lot of names and made fun of for maybe the more flamboyant kind of colorful clothing that I wore. You know, back then, you know,
Right.
pink was not in for guys. Baby blue wasn't
Right.
even in. This was back in the late 80s, early 90s. Things
But you couldn't wear
were
blue?
in flower. It wasn't that you didn't wear blue, but if you wore those colors in certain circles, you wouldn't be considered straight. You wouldn't be considered a man. Do you know what I mean? And
What?
you know, I loved, you know, I was in Hong Kong living with my dad, and I bought flowers with like big roses on it, and people just
Yeah.
judged me left, right, and center. And because of the job I was in, my former career, things like tattoos and piercings weren't accepted. You know, colorful clothes and prints weren't accepted. You know, it was the proverbial boys must wear blue, girls have to be pink, and never the twain shall meet, right? Now, fast forward 2, 3, 4 decades, and now guys are wearing pink, blue, orange prints, flowers,
All
you
the
know, all that
things.
kind of stuff. Because at the end of the day, what does it matter, right?
What is
Anybody
it?
who makes
Right.
fun of anybody for, especially guys
What
wearing,
they're wearing.
you know, I even have women's clothing. Why? Because
Right.
I'm a small guy. I'm only 5'6", 150 pounds. Guys'
Yeah.
clothing sometimes actually doesn't fit me. And by the way, they're boring. So I
Yeah.
go shopping in the women's section because if I want something more flowery and flamboyant, because that's who I am,
Right.
that's what brings me joy. Not to prove anything. I'm straight as an arrow. But if it
Right.
brings me joy to wear that, I'm buying the women's clothing,
Then I'm doing it.
right? Because
Right.
who says that that has to be sold to a woman,
Correct.
right? And anybody, sorry, go ahead.
Now, Craig, did it take you a while to get to that point?
I was already there when I was younger. So from
Yeah.
about 13, 14 to about 20, I was dressing a little bit more out there, right? Like different than
Yeah.
everybody else. Not to be different, because that's what brought me joy, because I liked the way I looked. Then I
Right.
stopped. Then my
That's what I'm
wardrobe
saying.
was
Like,
like
but there was a
gray, black, brown.
right.
It was super
Dolesville.
boring, super boring. And then it wasn't until my past relationship ended, I didn't really want to be in my career anymore. I was actually getting to, an effort point. Like, I'll just say it. Like, I was just like,
Yes.
if I want a sleeve and I want an arm tattoo, I don't care if my clients think ill of me, because you're not hiring
Right.
me because I have some ink on my body. You're not
Right.
hiring because my hair is purple. You're hiring me for my
Right.
brain and being the one of the
Correct.
best at what I did, not just in BC, but the entire country, right? Not to
Yes.
get too cocky or anything about it. But you're not
Wait,
hiring me
wait. What
because
did you do?
I was in a field called industrial hygiene and basically health and
Okay.
safety, worker health and safety, right?
Okay.
So I had to like wear flannel. I had to wear like, no rips in jeans, safety boots. I couldn't
It was
say what I
so
wanted
dull.
to say. I had to have proper cropped hair, because it was already tough enough being Asian at that time. I was one of the very, very few Asians in that industry in the late 90s, early 2000s. And so there was really a lot of judgment because of my skin color and the shape of my eyes,
Mm,
right?
right.
There was actually judgment for me having a master's of science, right? They thought I was too educated for them, right? Too.
What? That's a thing?
There was a lot of that, especially in certain environments, like old school, like
Yeah.
pulp mills and that kind of stuff, woodworking and forestry. So now though, in construction, it's like the barriers have been broken for at least the men. The men have earrings, nose rings, tats
Right.
everywhere. They're wearing
Right.
louder shirts and all that kind of stuff, because the men now are finally their
Yes.
inner heart, right? Like
Yeah.
if there's been obviously too much toxic masculinity, the men
Oh
are
man.
learning to
Yeah.
become and embrace their feminine and their heart,
Exactly.
and vice
Right.
versa for the women in general,
The
where
women.
they've been
Correct.
very, very feminine,
Yeah.
compassionate, and loving, which is what the world should be, by the way.
Correct.
But they've lost their voice or their power. They can't express themselves. Now they're
Yeah.
learning to tap into their divine masculine, their power
That's
center, right? In their solar plexus chakra. By the way, people use some pyrite. That's awesome for like, enhancing that personal power and learning to be able
yeah.
to express themselves.
Would you say pyrite?
Pyrite, right? Look at fool's
Yes.
gold, right? I mean,
Yes.
there's other
Yes.
things to help, enhance the divine masculine power, but that's one crystal that some people have worked with, especially women. I've actually worked with it too when I went too feminine. So
Yes.
that Kundalini awakening, that balancing is happening so that we can come back to a sense of wholeness, which is
Hmm.
connected to the yin yang. It's a
Correct.
circle
Yes.
with a
Yes.
teardrop white with a black dot,
Yeah,
and then the
with
black
some black.
teardrop
Yes.
and stuff like
With the
that. And
white.
there's no beginning, there's no
Yeah.
end. It's not just black, it's not just white, it's not just dark, it's not just light. It ain't just
It's
positivity
all.
and negativity, feminine, masculine. It is all combined into one. And when that becomes balanced, and we become whole, that's a whole
Hmm.
new level of being. But to ascend to those levels,
Hmm.
and by the way, folks, your ascension just doesn't start and stop one level.
No.
It's like Jacob's ladder in the Bible, right? You just keep
It
on going
is.
up and
It
up and
is.
up and up and up. Not many people realize that Jacob's ladder
Yes.
represents, right, from
The
the ascension process. The
correct.
dark night of the soul, folks, is the initiation process.
Yeah, the rite of passage,
That
that
right of right,
rite
yeah,
of
exactly. The
passage.
beginning point, or not the end point, but like that sort of like impetus, that
Yes,
catalyst, that spark to go, I got to change something. You question your
correct.
existence, you question your
It's
meaning.
the tower moment.
It's that like, oh my God, I got to make some changes. And then
Yeah.
it's not just one level of initiation. It's
You
many,
keep having them.
oh my
You
gosh,
keep
dozens,
have.
dozens.
Yes.
dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens, right? And
Yes.
even though it's a hard journey, as you know, it ain't easy.
Correct.
This is the hardest work I have ever done in my life, and
Ever
probably
do is on
will ever
yourself.
do in my lifetimes. I think you can attest to this. It's totally worth it.
It
It's so
is.
worth it.
It
It's so
is.
worth it to be able to not go out and be affected by other people's energy,
Right.
to be at true, not peaceful, but actually a true inner
Have
state
the
of peace,
yeah.
to live through and by my heart and to send out light and love, to see, my daughter was walking around, it was Halloween, but she noticed a trend. She's like, she's only 7. She's like, Daddy, why do people keep on looking at me or us and smiling? Right?
Because it's the
Are they
light.
making fun of me? I said, no, they're not, because you're
It's your
just
light.
walking light.
Yes.
Immediately when they see you, they brighten up and they smile.
Yes.
That's what your special power is. That's your gift, is light and love. Just by being
Yes.
you, walking
Yes.
around, whether it's in your Halloween costume or not. So they're not making fun of you. They're smiling because you're bringing them joy.
Joy. Yeah.
And I love, I can't believe where I was before. It's so
Right.
disparate and so, polar opposite of where, all I sent out was honestly anger and resentment.
Right.
And I thought that was what it took to be a man. That was power. If I dominated others, if I
Right.
had control over others, then I'm a man, right?
Right.
I got this. But you don't,
Right.
actually. It was
No.
false confidence and
Yeah.
destructive pride. Being a man, folks, being powerful in yourself is actually being open and vulnerable
Being vulnerable.
and compassionate. And that's where real strength lies, right? Treating others the way
Yeah.
that you want to be treated, right? The golden rule, right?
Yes.
And so how do we get there, right? Well, you're going to get there by realizing that you're going through a dark night. B, doing that work to getting some help, doing your research, actually doing some work there, realizing that all things are happening for a reason, that they're meant to be, going with the divine flow of life, and then actually getting right more into your healing work, building up more of your resilience as you learn to take care of yourself instead of taking care of others, right? Who can
Others.
do for them what they can do for themselves, you know what I mean? And then getting more even deeper into the shadow work, right? That literally is a nutshell my 6-week course, to get people going and spark them on that journey
Right.
into the shadow work. And then there's more courses coming of like, okay, now you've done a large part of your shadow
Done
work,
that next.
right? I actually
Yes.
started with shadow work first before I started inner. I was afraid of the inner child work. So I did the shadow work for at least about
First.
2 years. Then I'm like, I think I'm ready to tap into that inner child thing.
Yeah.
And then after inner child came mirror, right? But I didn't start with the inner child and the mirror work first. That was when I looked at what it involved. I'm like, oh man, there's no way I'm ready for this. You know what I mean?
See, I didn't get that. That's where ours was different. Like I didn't get any of that. I just got thrown into it. Like everything was happening at once. Over the last 32 years of life has just been full of constant deaths and rebirths. Like I'm not sure if you're aware of like karmic numbers.
So familiar, but let's just talk about it for the sake of your audience and stuff.
So like the 16, everyone asked me like why do you call yourself like 7, like V, like the Roman numeral 7?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Is it's the 16 is a karmic number of constant death and rebirth.
Right.
Literally, it's
Yeah.
just like you have a hard life. If you
Yeah.
have anywhere in your life, in your numerology chart, if you have anywhere a karmic number of 16 at all, your entire life is spent essentially mastering the trial and error, bumping into things, and you're meant to be serving your spiritual purpose. So if you're doing anything that is taking your focus off of your spirituality and your spiritual purpose, you're going to continuously get knocked down and go through some
Uh,
constant death and
all
rebirth things.
and a lot of pain and suffering. It was funny too. I was
A
taking
lot
a
of it.
grounding salt bath before this just to center myself, and I pulled out a card from Alana Fairchild's deck, Light Workers, and
Hmm.
in it, number 5 was karmic clearing. And
Yeah.
in that was that constant death and rebirth, and also that clearing of the karma, right?
Hmm.
It was, and it's
Yes.
so funny that we're talking about it, and it's one of the cards I pulled out. It's like, I bet you it's not just about where I'm at right now with clearing out some ancestral karma that I didn't
Yeah.
need to take on, but I bet you that
Correct.
this is going to be forming a bit of our topic. Today it was like I was praying for some inspiration and guidance to channel and download some messages of like, what are we going
Yes.
to talk about? I have no idea. And then all of a
Yeah.
sudden we're talking about karmic clearing and things like that. But that's we got
Yeah.
to get that stuff out of the way to
Correct.
allow the new stuff to come in.
To
So
come in.
folks, that constant death and rebirth is not literal death, right?
No,
It's
no,
it's a,
no,
it's a
no, no.
death of old ideas,
Correct.
limiting beliefs, past
Yeah.
perceptions, all the stuff that wasn't good for us in our soul and our heart. That's the death. That stuff has to die in order
Yeah.
for new life to come in. It's not much different than a rose bush. It's not much different than
Right.
an orchid. That
Right.
it's just a cycle of life, right?
Or again, like fall and winter, then comes
Exactly.
spring.
Excuse me.
Right.
And of course, there's going to be those ups and downs, this emotional roller coaster ride, but each time you go through, the peaks start to get cut off a little bit, the
Right.
valleys start to get cut off a little bit, and instead of this very crazy roller coaster sine wave, it starts to kind of go
Yes.
like this,
Right.
right? Your frequency is raising. You feel lighter. You don't feel as dense. The sun
Yes.
is shining. There's just clarity. It's like maybe you were watching TV on one of those old school, cathode ray tube televisions where it's
Yeah.
grainy, black and white, or barely color.
The big booty
And now you're
television.
looking at life through like an 8K OLED
Yeah.
screen where every little pixel is like just
Yeah. You're like, oh my
that much
God.
more enhanced, right?
Yeah.
But of course, we can't get to that and have that fog lift
Right.
and the sunlight and the clarity shining and a clear picture of where we're going for our spiritual purpose and things like that if we don't do the work. And here's the
Right.
thing, the stronger the soul, the more adversity we're going to face.
Absolutely.
So it's not punishment, folks. It's not punishment.
No.
It's
Right.
these challenges, these lessons that your soul has come on this planet to learn,
Yeah.
right? Means that you're actually an advanced soul, advanced
Correct.
enough
And
and
you can handle it.
strong enough, courageous and brave enough, resilient enough that you can handle, because God don't throw anything your way
That you
that you
can't handle.
cannot handle. You yourself,
Correct.
actually, it's not just God. You're the one who actually created this too, as part of the divine
Exactly.
plan. Your soul, your higher self, ain't throwing anything at you, presenting you that you cannot handle. So
You didn't sign up for.
that you didn't sign up for, and that's some of the difficult thing is like, it's easy to say and
Understanding
understand and go,
you signed up for
I
this.
sign up, and then you ask why would I
Literally,
choose
I say
this
that.
body? Why would I
I
choose
say
this
that so
life?
frequently.
You know what I mean? Like, why? You know
What
why,
was I
folks?
thinking?
You know why, folks?
Yeah.
Because you can.
Because you can handle it. And beyond that, like more than anything, I tell people frequently this as well. You're here doing something that only you could do.
Absolutely.
And that's why.
Absolutely. Right. And maybe this is for another podcast, but if I went through all of the trauma, all the different forms of abuse that I experienced,
Yeah.
the lost relationships, jobs, work, finances, everything is just like, holy effing S. Why is it
Yeah.
all coming? Not all at once, but like, why is it all like in this
Everything.
life? When am I
Yes.
going to get out of these burdens? When I'm going to drop the bag of rocks? Well,
Right.
again, it's a delayed gratification kind of a thing.
That,
You can't just, I say to people,
yeah.
right, you might have been carrying a really, really big bag, right? But it
Hmm.
ain't just
Yeah.
simple as just taking off the bag of rocks and just dropping it to the ground, because now you still have
No.
rocks on the ground,
Right.
right?
Exactly.
Sometimes boulders, So
Boulders,
now,
man.
what do you got to do to remove those boulders, right? Maybe don't start with the big ones. Start with the little pebbles and start
Right.
flicking them out of your path, and
Yeah.
then work your way at chiseling down with a jackhammer or whatever it is, a pile driver,
Yes.
those bigger boulders
Yes.
so that they're, made into like sizable chunks, right? Don't bite off more than you can chew.
Right.
It's a process, right?
It is a process.
And it's progress, not perfection.
That's been, as a Virgo, that one has been the toughest one for me. Like, Virgo perfectionism is a thing, but perfectionism is not real. And I'll say that to everyone, like, also, is if you have that type A personality or you
Yeah.
have the perfectionism gene where you're like, it has to be this way, like, you can't control any of the stuff that's happening. So like number one, that's going to be an irksome thing of like, I have to get it to be this way. And, number one, but number two, there is no perfectionism here. Like, and if you are going for the thing of, I'm only going to do this if I can be perfect at it, or if I can be the best at it, or if I can do it perfectly, you're never going to do anything. Speaking from experience.
Oh, absolutely, right. But
Speaking.
you know what it is, that character defect or negative trait, that flaw is
Yeah,
a it's something that we need to heal, right? Like
exactly.
it's actually that perfectionism is a fear-based thing. Fear of a
Yes.
loss of control, fear of not being able to
Right.
control things, fear of not dictating how things should go, right? Like I
Right.
used to be that guy in high school and university where I would take notes furiously, and then
Yeah.
I would write it out in all sorts of different colors and highlighters. Like it was so colorful. I was literally called the human typewriter because my printing was so neat. But here's the funny thing
But
about my perfectionism. If I messed up my notes, I wouldn't just white it out. I would
you'd
literally
redo it.
crumple the paper, throw it out, and start over again right from the
Damn,
beginning.
Craig.
That's where perfectionism, that's where my perfectionism took me. And let me tell you, yes, it did drive me to strive to be better. Okay, so there's a
Right.
positive level of perfectionism, right?
Yes.
There's also the good and the bad, but
Right.
I let it rule me to the point where it
Yeah.
crippled me.
Yeah.
It wasn't
It F's
helpful,
you.
right? It
Correct.
hindered me, right? So, folks, these
Yeah.
character defects, these traits and flaws, they're actually not really flaws. They're actually just a way to show us our assets.
Correct.
They're a way for
Correct.
us to balance being a perfectionist versus
Right.
pursuing excellence or striving
Right.
for perfection,
Yeah.
right?
Excellence and exceptionalism are achievable things, but perfectionism is not.
Right. And now we're getting sort of like more into that shadow work, like doing a list of all of our
Hmm.
looking at ourselves and what don't we like about ourselves? What are all our character
Right.
defects? But also making a list of all of our good traits.
Good
What of
things.
our
Yes.
character assets? And then realizing that yes, there is good in us, maybe some bad, but that
Right.
bad was actually a disguise for good. You
For
know,
good. The
you know,
strengths and the weaknesses.
Right. There's
Yes.
there's there's little p pride, being proud of yourself, and then there's big P pride, being destructively, falsely prideful. You know, there's little c confidence of being self-confident, but then there's also big C confidence of being falsely confident. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
There's that,
Yes.
and that's the yin yang, right? That's the good bad.
Exactly.
Good and bad are
Exactly.
just the same sides, right? Or different
Right.
sides of the same coin,
Yes.
right? And if we can meld those together, just like we talked earlier about, kind of like bringing it
Yes.
full circle, no pun intended, just like melding the divine masculine and the divine feminine, the good,
Right.
the bad, the light, the dark, the positive, the negative, and
Right.
embrace it all, man, we become that much more powerful. Because as you know, right, we haven't talked about this term, but we are slowly, some of us are moving slowly, some of us are moving quickly out of duality
Correct.
into non-duality,
Right.
right, folks? And you know this, Stasia. Good,
Yeah.
bad is just a disguise for good,
Good. Right.
right? So anytime, I have felt something bad was happening to me or that I was being punished somehow by God source for doing something in another life, and this is coming
Yes.
back to haunt me as my
Yes. I'm
really
like,
bad karma, kind
yeah.
of thing. I've realized there is actually some, not just some, a lot of good that I'm meant
Yeah.
to learn out of this.
From it.
What am I meant
Hmm.
to heal and let go of? And we haven't even talked about records that start
Exactly.
with an A, but
Right.
how do we clear that
Right.
from our records and
Right.
essentially, start from a clean slate,
Yes.
right? So, I mean,
Yeah.
we could go on and on into so many different tangents and divergent paths.
I sense future collaborations like quite frequently with us coming because like there's a lot that we can talk about.
Well, I think, I want to say this too. This is a refreshing conversation because we're talking spirituality. Okay. We're
Correct.
talking about some things that are out there that some folks might be a little skeptical of, right?
Right. Right.
But we're talking about it in a 3D practical
Relatable.
relatable realm,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And so, you know, it's like you said, it's trying to appeal to the masses, or address the masses in terms of what can we do from a 3D standpoint to move
Right.
ourselves into higher dimensions, because we're just here right now temporarily in this 3D, this third dimension, right?
Plane.
But there's many, many, many more as we, kind of
Correct.
ascend, and things like that. And now it's just a matter of integrating and implementing what we have learned, the tools and practices that we share with our folks, and helping them get to that point, right? We just have
Right.
to do it here, unfortunately, before, as above, so below.
Literally, yes.
And so
Yes.
below, as above, I say to people, right, living as a spiritual being in a human body is, you've got one hand up to the start
Correct.
of the dimensions, but you also need your feet firmly planted into the ground.
Right.
That's one of, Mother Earth's roles, is to help us
Right.
be grounded right here. Because
Right.
yes, it is beautiful out there. Trust me. And
Yeah.
many, many times I have not wanted to come back into this body. It is just
The
so
love the
dang
love
hard,
of the transcendence is
right? Like,
yes.
why would I want to come back here? Why would I want to suffer more?
Right.
I know that we're meant to be here. So how do I
Right.
manage? How do you manage still staying sort of up as above,
Br-
but then being grounded and
Bridging.
centered into the body, and then bridging that gap, right?
Right.
It's a hard balance to maintain. That's why I also recommend
It
people,
is.
just don't, if you're getting into crystals, don't buy a piece of moldavite and start sleeping with it or meditating with it, because it'll take you on a trip. You know, start
Craig is
small.
speaking from experience.
I got one story where I was meditating with a friend in my garage, and thank God I listened to the person who sold me the moldavite. They said, "Hey, you need to have some grounding stones with you, like boji balls, hematite, tourmaline. Like, make sure you're grounded." But I was
Grounded.
meditating with a moldavite in my hands, and I literally felt like I was levitating off the ground. It was
Yeah.
crazy.
What's
And
happening? Yeah, like
when I felt that, I got so scared that I opened up my eyes, immediately dropped the moldavite, and grabbed the boji balls, and, like, okay, I'm here, yada yada yada,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So, that's sort of like some of my last pieces of suggestion is, start off small.
Small.
Go too big. Don't dive into the mirror work. Don't
Yes.
you were meant I know you were meant to do, you were thrown into the deep end because you could
Yeah.
handle that, right?
Yeah.
I couldn't.
Hindsight, but
Yeah.
yes.
I couldn't. Like, I was guided not to do that work just yet,
Right.
right? So I just followed my intuition. So
Yeah, and that's
see,
how
there's
it
a
should be.
divergent path, right? Like, you went right into it, and I held back from it a little bit.
Right.
Right. So just, go with the intuition, start off small, get some help, talk to people that have been there before, that have walked that walk, instead of just talking the talk, and really deeply resonate with the
Right.
spiritual person you're talking to, because not a lot of, sorry, spiritual folks, but, like, some stuff that's
Just
said
say
out
it, Craig.
there and stuff that I see out there is just, like, a little bit too woo woo.
Is be
I truly think that there's some level of authenticity and belief that they have. Like, I know the language that they're using.
right.
You know what I mean? It's just, it's it's not grounded in reality and
Right.
practicality into this
Or
world,
experience.
right? Like, there is a certain way and certain methods to keep
Yeah.
yourself safe and grounded when you're meditating with crystals. Like,
Right.
don't go start making a grid if you don't know what a grid is. You know,
You don't know what you're
don't
doing.
start
Don't do it.
making a wand and a shield full of, like, high vibrational crystals.
Right,
Start
that
off
you
a
don't.
little bit small, that you don't know, because it can really scare the crap out of you when you're,
Right.
that's like I liken it to someone saying, like, if you're just starting to learn how to drive, don't be jumping in a 1,000 horsepower F1 car and start
Right.
ripping around at 200 miles an hour around a track. Like, you're not
Right.
ready for that,
You ain't
right?
ready.
You ain't ready.
You wasn't
Start
ready.
learning some of the basic driving skills and get comfortable with the car,
Right.
the acceleration and the braking and how that car handles before you start to
Yeah.
progress into more powerful, vehicles that will be able to handle. Because again, God will not throw anything at you. Your higher self won't throw anything at you that you cannot handle, right? But
You
my
know,
mind goes, I
let me
got
do it
this.
all.
Exactly. Sorry, I
Yeah.
interrupted.
No, no. Before I forget, I had an experience exactly that when I was younger, where I think I was maybe 10 or 11, maybe 12 at the max. But I was with a friend and we were at this bookstore and we came across this, like, they have that like metaphysical, like spiritual section.
Yeah.
I think it was something like Barnes and Noble or something like that. But we were at a bookstore and there was a spiritual section and I got like, the little kid in me was like, oh, I wandered over there and I remember seeing this fortune telling book and I wanted the book only because it had a crystal ball. And I remember I was like, I'm using all of my babysitting money and all my chore money on this book right here. And I remember I bought it and I got it home and it had this little crystal ball and this little like satin cloth on it and the little ring. And I remember reading the book up to like a certain point and I got it out and I literally, this happened, the crystal ball like rolled off the thing. And I remember when I went to go pick it up, they stopped me and was like, you're not ready and don't look into it.
Yeah.
And and then I could never find it after that. I went to sleep and for the love of me, I don't know what happened to that crystal ball, but like I could never find it.
Well, that's that intuition of like what people have experienced too. You hear the stories, maybe even happen to you folks, where something's telling you, don't walk down this street right now,
Yes.
or, take this route, or don't cross,
Yeah.
whatever it is. And then boom, there's an accident, or there's a problem with the plane, or whatever it is, right? Those are all
Right.
divine, is what we call a divine intervention, right?
Correct.
To say, don't do this, is
Yeah.
probably not going to be good for you. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? And so that's where guidance comes in, and that's where we can tune in and go, this is probably not a good idea right now.
Yeah.
Right now,
Yeah.
me being a younger version of me and less wise, my mind would overrule that, right? Like,
I'm doing it.
no problem,
Yeah.
I got this. And
You
then
got this.
pretty soon I'm like in over my
I
head,
don't
and
got it.
realize I don't got this at all.
I
I
don't
bet
got
I
it.
bet I better stop.
Yeah. But see, I didn't like I think that's one thing that I will say is that like I have always been pretty obedient for the most part and like tapped into the I guess the divine feminine self of me even at a kid age. I mean, I remember being pissed because I was like, I just bought this. Like I spent my chore money on it, I was like, why can't I,
Yeah.
but like but I didn't, but man, I did. I watched it just roll over across the ground and I was like, I want to get
Yeah, I know. It's just like, and it could become obsessive, could become compulsive. But you know what? Thank God you listen to your intuition, and that's sort of like another learning lesson we can share with folks is just go with your guidance. Do you know what I mean?
just
Like
listen.
just listen, start to get a pendulum and start asking that. Start asking other people, right? Journal and just
Right.
in a way just ask for help. You don't have to
Right.
ask for help from people like us, but you can ask for help out there from other beings and say,
Right.
I need some help.
I
Please
need
help guide me, and then get the mind out of the way, and then
correct.
see where it takes you, right? But I mean, it sounds like you being on an accelerated path,
Really long time. My
right?
entire literally came out the womb this way.
Rocket ship kind of thing. And mine is yeah, it started around 13, 14, but really it kickstarted after I went into treatment and had this last dark
Right.
soul, right? So like I've been on an
Right.
accelerated path for only 4 years,
Right. But still,
right?
your stuff. Like, and again, your path, the things that you went through made you literally an expert in this dark night of the soul, the healing on all the things and the modalities, the crystals, the things to do with it. Like your stuff because of you went through it.
Well, I
You
went
did
through it,
it.
right? I have direct experience, personal experience.
Correct.
I've done the
Correct.
things you shouldn't probably do and experienced some of the
Exactly.
great things.
Exactly.
And I've also done the things that I've been guided to do and experienced some
Correct.
more positive things, right? Like I had to learn.
Exactly.
Unfortunately, I had to learn, or no, actually, fortunately, I learned the hard way, right?
Right.
I learned through a lot of experimentation. I was like literally a spiritual human guinea pig, a spiritual guinea pig,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
You know, I don't know exactly sometimes how I know certain things, that level of clear cognizance and inner
Claircognizance.
knowing.
Yeah.
I started looking to things like dark matter and quarks,
Exactly. Yes.
and metaphysics and aspects
Yes.
of astrophysics when I was like 13, 14. I was just like
hmm
fascinated with like there's got to
Yes.
be more smaller molecules than what just make us up. And now, going into like super M string theory and threads, which whole nother ball game of
Whole
how
other thing.
everything is connected energy wise,
Interconnected.
very, very thin, invisible strings or threads between all of
Yes.
us, which, by the way, I know is true, but
Correct.
I don't know how I know that, right?
You just know.
I just know, right?
Yeah.
I think the most important thing for people to understand is there's also a level of practicality, and
hmm
we're not here to disparage anyone in this field who might be a little bit out there doing the woo woo thing, but
No.
it's got
Right.
to be practical, that's
Right.
implementable, right? Like there's
Right.
boundaries, for instance, and there's boundaries from a standpoint of saying no to people that keep on taking from you, but there's actually a
Right.
spiritual deeper level behind the boundary, right? There's
Right.
addressing people pleasing and rescuing, right, so that you're not giving
Yeah.
too much away of yourself, but there's actually a deeper spiritual thing behind people pleasing and rescuing and why we do that, right?
Exactly.
So I think we're here to help bring the practicality into
Yeah.
reality,
Yeah.
spirituality as reality for the masses so that they can do some of that work and then get to deeper and deeper levels to experience some of the things that we're experiencing. This is such a beautiful conversation. This is awesome. I love this. This is amazing.
Exactly.
This is
It
amazing.
is though. It is though. The energetic resonance and likeness that we have is like a perfect feng shui going on here.
Well, absolutely, right? The yin and the yang, but playing back and forth and all that kind of stuff. Even some of the words you use are words that I don't hear often, like irksome.
Yes.
I literally wrote the word "this irks me" like in my journal like a few days ago, and it's like now you use the word irk. I'm like, this gal is cool, man. She used the word
Yeah.
irk.
You're like,
You know what I mean? Even the words that you choose to use, right, and get out there are some of the words that I would actually use,
what? Right.
and that's pretty cool too.
Yeah. It's a nice, this has been literally, I'm like, this has been the best episode ever because it is. It's just like,
Thank you. Yes,
yeah, like
and
you
this is
get
one of my
me.
best conversations, right, with my soul sister, kind of like
Exactly.
sister from another mister, brother from another mother.
That.
You know, just turns out that mother and father and all that stuff is just from source, and that was actually one of the first things that attuned me to you at the beginning, was because people are afraid of the word God. Some people
Correct.
use higher power. Some people are more comfortable using Mother Earth, love, universe, whatever it is. But when you said source, I was like, yeah, she gets
She gets
she
it.
gets it, right?
Gets
That
it.
that source of all, that source of
Correct.
energy that feeds us, that enhances us, that elevates us, that energizes us to do things. People say, "Whoa, Craig, you're like the Energizer Buddy." I'm a little bit more tempered now. How come you have so much energy to do all these things and balance all these responsibilities with work and clients and businesses and kids and yada 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 yada? It's like, well, I don't
Yeah.
just sit there thinking about things. I don't sit there watching YouTube too much or scrolling or whatever have you. It's like I look at my priorities, right?
Right.
Live real life priorities and go, well, should I be making lunch for my kids or should I be scrolling on Facebook? What's more important?
Right.
If I don't do my laundry, I'm gonna have some dirty, smelly clothes, so I got to get that done.
Correct.
Maybe
So
I'll,
I'm gonna just
I'll
do
I'll
this.
I'll watch some YouTube videos while the laundry is being done, but I take
That.
advantage
Yes.
of mindfully take advantage of each moment in the day to do what is the higher priority that will serve my peace and my freedom and things like that. Because yeah, if you use YouTube and social media to connect like we have had, which was
Correct.
beautiful, which was meant to happen, that's one thing, right? But then
Right.
I'm off it, right?
Right.
When
Right.
I get this video out there, I may not even watch this entire video, but I'm just going to post it and just let it be. You know what I mean?
Right.
But I'm not going to
Right.
look at comments and you know
Literally, that's me.
go
Literally,
in
that's
go
me.
into the without judgment, right? But like
Just
these algorithms of what people are selling, going, if you don't respond to your community and comments, then the algorithm's not going to work and blah, 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 blah. But it's like, man, you can totally get caught up in 3, 4, 5 different conversations with people, and then 10, 15 comments per those 5 people. That's like 50 to 75
too
comments.
much. It's
And then
too
if I
much,
look at it
right?
from a,
It's
you
too
do an
much.
energetic calculation, I do a time
Yes.
calculation. Now, if it takes me
Nah.
30 seconds to a minute to respond to 50 comments, well, that's almost an hour of my time.
Can't.
And it's like,
Can't.
well, would I rather bike or exercise or pray or meditate or clean my house? Like, I don't have
Or,
1 to 2
or rest, have some me
constantly
time.
responding
Listen,
to people and things like that.
can't. Yeah,
So
and
it's,
that's me.
yeah, and again, no judgment. It's just, being selective with who I hang out with, when I hang out
Correct.
with them, where I hang out with them, who I respond to, when I respond, how
That
much I respond. It's
that
that level of mindfulness to go, how far do I want to go and how much time and energy do I want to invest,
invest.
right? And
Yeah,
if my intuition says no, keep the conversation going. Like, we're well
I
over,
will.
an hour now. I actually can't believe it. We're actually 2 hours now,
2 hours.
right?
Yes.
Then let's go for it. You know,
Right.
if that
Right.
conversation is you're not jiving or resonating or vibing with that person, end it.
Correct.
Thank you
Done.
very much.
Exactly.
Bye. And then move on and progress. And we're not meant to be static. We're meant to be dynamic, to move our bodies, to not be
Free
sedentary,
flowing.
and to
Yes.
flow, wherever
Yeah.
that river kind of takes us.
Takes
I
you.
said to my kids, they're like, oh, this is a different route than what we're used to taking. I said, no, that's how I traveled the world. I wouldn't go
Yes.
where all the other
Yes.
tourists went. I went
Yeah.
down the alley that looked maybe sketch, you know what I mean?
Yes.
That no one went down, just because my intuition was like, go down this alley, and then you discover a delicatessen, or you discover a store, or something that's
Yes.
interesting that no one else has potentially seen. Like,
Yes.
it's that the road or the path less traveled, and
Less travel.
which also
Yeah.
which also helps with neuroplasticity, with
Yeah.
also helps with rewiring the brain. I challenge
Yeah.
anyone. My former sponsor challenged me this. He said, it takes 20, and it's true, it takes 28, 30 days to build a habit and to also get out of a habit.
Right.
He's like, what
Right.
sock do you put on first in the morning, Craig? And I said, well, I put on my right sock first. He's like, well, for the next 30 days, I want you to put on your left sock. So I started doing that the next morning. Holy crap. Was that ever weird to
Yeah.
mindfully, like, it was just so automatic that I put on my right sock. I didn't even realize
Right.
I put on my right sock all the time. Then to do it on my left sock was
Yeah. And you're like,
was like totally foreign. Or
yes.
I decided to switch my drawers up, cleaning cloths up top, Ziploc bags and other things on the bottom. And for 1 month, I kept on pulling out the wrong drawer. When I wanted the
Yes.
cleaning
That's me.
cloth, I got a Ziploc
Why
bag.
do I keep doing
When I
this?
wanted the Ziploc bag, I got a cleaning cloth. I'm like, what the hell is going on here? Like,
What is this?
right?
Yes.
But it helped me keep things fresh,
Correct.
in mind, and not get so wired into the same,
Routine.
routine over and over again. Like, I have my practices, right? I teach this to other people as well. Like, set your practices, small or big as they may be: yoga, stretching, journaling, prayer, whatever it is in the morning. Okay.
Right.
Do it so you can get into a routine. But then after you get into a routine, start to mix it up. Still do yoga, stretching, journaling, whatever, but reverse the order.
Right.
Right. The only thing that I always make first is my coffee in the morning. That is just, there's no, I don't journal first or
Craig's like,
meditate
that
first. It's
is
like,
non-negotiable.
coffee is non-negotiable. I will never quit this. I will never not make my coffee first. Right. Then I get to
That's hilarious.
then I get to the different practices and things like
Cute. Non-negotiables. Coffee.
non-negotiables. So yeah, like, I feel like we're ready to wrap up. I would love to have another conversation with you about whatever pops up.
Whatever comes up.
Maybe we put it out there on our respective social media platforms and ask people for, what's coming through is like asking them for their opinion or what they have questions on. Then we can take like the audience questions, like sort of like a Q&A,
Yeah.
and go, okay, well, we talked about this and some of you asked about this, and let's talk about this now.
Okay.
Who knows? I don't know.
Sounds good.
Wicked.
Cool. All right. Well, if there's any, Do you want to talk about anything that you have coming up? I know we both have some courses that we're in the process of making. So you want to?
I'm in the process, probably a little bit past halfway, of creating this 6 week course about how to navigate the dark night of the soul and your healing path, at least in the beginning stages of your journey. So keep your eye out for that. It's going to be posted advertisements on YouTube, but also on my website, spiritualwarriorwellness.com. Check me out also on LinkedIn, where I offer spiritual and life and career coaching. So if anybody is interested in how I may be able to serve them and help them out, guide them, take a look at that profile, and also just check out my YouTube channel at the Spiritual Samurai 11, because I got a bunch of stuff on there about musings and reflections, meditations. It's
Okay.
yeah,
Sounds good, Greg. We have to when I hit stop on here, hang out for just like a second
yeah.
so that I can make sure that your upload has fully uploaded. But outside of that, thank you so much for being on here and having this amazing, free-flowing, very feng shui filled
It was
conversation. And I can't
absolutely
wait for
beautiful.
our next.
Yes, me too.
Yes,
Thank you. I am honestly so grateful.
as am I.